Today I thought it would be a good idea to dive a little bit deeper into the darker side of decluttering because, believe it or not, if you're someone who loves decluttering like myself, it is not all fun and sunshine and rainbows to just get rid of all our stuff. There are definitely some realities that not a lot of people talk enough about, in my opinion. And so in this video, I want to share with you some of those realities. Let's dive a little bit deeper into some decluttering truths that are maybe a little bit overlooked. If you're new here, my name's Amanda. I make videos all about minimalism and simple living, and decluttering is a huge part of that. And I think there are two camps of people: the people who love decluttering and get really inspired to declutter and really motivated by getting things and stuff out of their home. And then you have the other camp of people who like their stuff and have no interest in decluttering. But I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're probably in the camp of you like decluttering, but you're like, what are these dark sides to decluttering? What are these realities that I may be overlooking when it comes to decluttering? And whether you're in the early stages of decluttering or you haven't even started, so you're kind of intrigued as to maybe what can go wrong here, or if you're in the journey, these are probably some realities that you've experienced yourself, like I have. And so I think it can resonate with everybody who's in the process of either starting to declutter or already in their journey of decluttering and simplifying. And so the first reality that I want to touch on is the fact that decluttering never ends. Decluttering isn't something that you do once and then you never have to do it again. And I was a little bit misled by this because when I started my minimalism journey, this was about 5 years ago, when Marie Kondo's Netflix series was all the rage, and I watched it and I thought, this is incredible. Look at the lives of these people. She comes in, they declutter their whole house, and their lives are forever changed. And I thought, that is incredible. But I also had this idea that I could do the same thing and I would declutter my whole home and then I would just be done and life would be better. And that is not the case. The truth is, the reality is that decluttering is a forever process. It's not something that you're going to do once and then be done with. That being said, there are many people who have gotten to the other side of it where you've done the hard work, you've done the big decluttering, you've simplified your life, and now you're just doing like maintenance decluttering. You're just managing the stuff that does come into your home regularly. But as long as you're always purchasing, always bringing things into your home, which is all of us, if we're being honest here, you're always going to be decluttering. There's always going to be regular maintenance decluttering that you're going to have to do. And so if you're at the beginning of this decluttering journey and you're thinking, oh, this is great, I'm going to do this huge declutter and then my life's going to be so improved, it will be, but don't have this idea that once you've decluttered, you're done forever, because that is not true. The truth is, it is an ongoing process. You will always have to declutter, but once you've done the heavy lifting, like the big chunk of it, the maintenance decluttering down the road is a breeze. And by that point, you're usually pretty well seasoned in decluttering. You've used those muscles quite a bit. You've gotten better at it, and it's not so overwhelming. The second reality that I want to talk about when it comes to decluttering that is often overlooked is that honestly, you might waste a lot of time decluttering. And I say this as somebody who's been decluttering for about 5 years, and I still feel like I'm not completely there. I'm not over that hump yet fully where I'm just maintaining and doing maintenance decluttering. I still feel like I'm not there yet. And what I mean by wasting time is, in my experience, there are two approaches to decluttering, kind of broadly speaking. So you have the slow and gentle approach, which is, for example, like packing things away in boxes or bins and storing them because you're not too sure if you want to keep or get rid of them yet, or having maybe piles and then returning to that later. The approach is easier in the beginning because you don't have to make those hard emotional decisions. And so it makes the process a little more simple when we're just starting out. And on the other side of that is the ruthless approach to decluttering, which is making those hard and fast decisions, deciding if this isn't an absolute yes, I'm just going to declutter it. And the thing with that approach is that it is harder in the beginning. It's not usually an approach that most people start out with. But in my experience, because I have done both, the ruthless decluttering approach is by far the most effective approach. You will waste way less time because on the slow, gentle side of things, you're always having to return to those items, to that stuff, to make decisions again and again and again. And while this might feel better in the beginning because you're not parting with things that you're not so sure about, you're attached to some things, sentimental items, like there's a lot involved. Take that slower approach. It might help you early on, but you will find down the road that you probably wasted so much time making decisions about the same items over and over again. So the hard reality to come to terms with, especially if you're somebody like me who's been decluttering for years, is that you might waste a lot of time doing it. And so I would recommend going the ruthless route from the get-go if you can, because you will find that it will be much more effective. You'll waste way less time. You'll get to that place where you're just doing maintenance declutters and not ongoing decluttering, deep, heavy decluttering, much, much faster. The third reality I want to talk about is that you may offend some people and you may get judgment from some people. So one of the things I learned pretty early on is that aside from the people that I might follow on YouTube or Instagram who are also interested in decluttering and minimalism and simple living, in my own life, not as many people are. And so, for example, I have a mother who is a lot more sentimental about things, and anytime she sees or hears that I'm getting rid of something or I'm not hanging on to something, it really strikes a chord with her, and it's harder for her to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've also been gifted lots of things from family when we first got married, a lot of secondhand items like furniture and kitchenware and all these types of things. And if I got rid of something or decluttered something, and someone found out about it, it could offend them, and it's tough in the beginning to accept that, and you might hang on to something because you feel bad, which is not the right thing to do, by the way, but you might, especially in the beginning, because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But the truth of the matter is that it's inevitable. You might offend people. Many of us are gifted items all the time, whether it's a holiday or an event or a birthday or whatever it might be. Sometimes you're not going to want to hang on to those things, and it's okay to let them go, but you have to accept the fact that you might hurt somebody's feelings or offend somebody, and you do your best, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you and your family and your home. And if you offend somebody in the process or have to accept some judgment from family or friends, then that's just the reality of it. In my opinion, the reward for having a decluttered home and a peaceful home way outweighs the fact that, you know what, I might offend somebody. I'm okay with that. The fourth reality that I want to talk about is that you will be faced with some tough moral questions when you begin decluttering. And this only applies if you are not living alone, because if you are living alone, you are in full control 100% of every decision in your home. But for most of us who either live with a spouse or a partner or have a family like husband, wife, kids, you're going to have to ask yourself some hard questions. And something I learned early on is that you are either okay with decluttering your family's possessions without their consent, or you are not. And I tend to lean to the side of I am not okay with decluttering my husband or my kids' stuff without their consent. Some people are, because some people feel like, well, if I don't get rid of all their stuff and their junk, we'd be living in a hoarder's house. That's a deeper rooted issue. Maybe you have to have a conversation with your family about that. But for most of us who don't have hoarder relatives, I think we have to have honest discussions about, look, I want to simplify our home and these are the reasons why, and talk to them about what decluttering is, especially if you have little kids. Include them in the process. Accept that the reality is it's not just your home and your space. You are sharing that with others. And so this is something that often gets brought up by a lot of people when they start decluttering. It's like, how do I get my husband on board with this? How do I deal with all of my kids' stuff? This is a hard reality to face when you start decluttering, but it's there and you can't overlook it. We have to deal with it head on. So I think understanding that early on in the process is going to make your life a lot easier. So have those conversations with your family and be honest about the reasons why you're doing things and try and get everybody on the same page. The final reality I want to talk about is that you're going to inevitably hit a wall or multiple walls and give up at some point. Unless you're that type of person who takes the ruthless approach to decluttering right from the get-go, and there are, I'm sure, people like that, but for the majority of us, that's not the case. If you are that person and you go straight into it, you declutter everything, you make hard and fast decisions, chances are you're going to power through and be really successful and have it be really effective. But for most of us, because we start off taking the slower approach to decluttering, you're going to have those peaks and valleys. You're going to hit walls where it's emotionally draining. The decision fatigue is just overwhelming, and you might just give up. You might say, you know what, I can't do this. This is too much for me. I'm just going to have to accept that this is my life. I've got a lot of stuff. I've got kids who've got a lot of stuff. It's just how it is. The reality is that's going to happen to most of us. The truth is you can get through those hard times if you really focus on the why behind why you're doing this, the reason why you're decluttering, why you want to simplify your life. It's a lot easier to break through those barriers and to not give up in the process and to just acknowledge that this is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be so worth it. I just want to say that if you resonated with any of these realities, whether you're in the process of decluttering and you're like, wow, yeah, I feel that. Or maybe you're starting your journey and you're not yet experiencing some of these, but you're a little bit concerned about it. Just know that you're not alone. These realities, this darker side of decluttering, it's not a bad thing. It's just part of the process. And ultimately the reward from decluttering is so worth having to deal with all of these things. Decluttering is going to be challenging. It's just how it is, but it's also such a powerful tool to allow us to create space and clarity and intention for our lives. Just acknowledging these realities is going to allow us to approach decluttering with compassion for ourselves and with patience. And that's gonna just allow us to navigate the process much more effectively and ultimately just reap the benefits of simpler, more intentional life. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you got some value from this video, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for more content all about minimalism and simple, intentional living. I'll see you in my next video.